Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to do something a little different. It's been a long time since I've done a video. I'm trying to be a little more consistent, and so yeah, today's video is going to be, my wife and I are enjoying our anniversary, and we are away at this little tiny cabin for a couple days. So she's off with an appointment, and I am going to do some painting. So thought I would walk you along as I go through the process. And it'll be a little different. It's all handheld. I didn't bring my tripod or anything, so yeah, it'll be a little more rustic, but that's okay. If you're up for it, you can paint along with me. So I'll show you my setup here. I've got my paper. It's kind of a longer, skinnier one. Oops, taped up, and water, and then I've got my little travel palette, which I'll be opening up, and then. Yeah, I'm probably going to rinse that out before we get started here. And then I've also got my brushes. These are the Escoda Blue Series traveling brushes. So there's 3 brushes. Oh, this is what I'll be using. I'll pull this one out. That's the small one. Usually I only use the 2. I'll use that one. And I use this one, my big brush. So you'll see me using those 2. I may use the tiny one, but probably not. I can get small enough with just those 2. And then I've got my iPad set up. I've got my pencil case stuck under the top of this to give it a little bit of an incline. Pencil to do the drawing up. My water pot, I said that already, I think. And then this is all taped to a plastic lid of some files that I had. It was just the easiest, flat, sturdy surface that I could bring with us here on our little trip. So I'm going to start with the drawing phase. If you want to skip ahead to the painting phase, you can do that. Typically I find when I do the drawing phase, it doesn't, the lines are, actually these lines aren't too bad. They're showing up all right. I was going to say sometimes they don't show up too well for the video, just because I'm drawing sometimes a little too faint. So as I do that, I can tell you a little bit about how I plan, if I can manage to talk and work at the same time, how I plan to tackle this. So I'm wanting to, like for the antlers, you can see the kind of lighter part of the antlers. Sorry, I'm trying to move that up. I'm wanting to kind of leave those not white. I'll probably do a really light color on them. But I'll try to leave them kind of so that they show through really nicely. And then the darker parts, I want to go quite dark, because I think this will look nicest with the antlers kind of really sticking out. And then you'll have parts of the moose's head and upper body that will also kind of be quite prominent. And then I'm planning to do the what's it called, grass and things around it in like quite a faint color, and kind of have that blend, do some wet and wet so that it fades, and we'll have some faded edges. So that is the idea. Just do the ears here. Okay, and then the eyes are quite important. It's really actually hard to see a little bit. I've got the sun going on here. That kind of nose. Outline the shape. I'm trying to keep this quite faint. I guess the actual body of the moose will show up fairly well. Like we'll definitely see it. And then I won't really do anything to do with the grass. There's a little bit of his side and a leg. Yeah. Just maybe show those a bit. I might, what I'll do is when I'm not holding the camera, I'll take a look at the iPad a little more clearly and add in a few finishing touches. All right, so I did a little bit of work on the eyes just to make them a little more clear. I've got my palette set up here, cleaned it off, and my water pot there. I'll try to show you what I'm doing with those. So I'm starting off with a light color. I should have spritzed it up. I didn't show you this earlier, but I do have my little spray bottle. So I'll just give my colors a quick spray. And I'm going to put in some of these really light areas like the antler. And I can actually probably be pretty liberal kind of with where they go, because the color around is actually quite light as well, like in the trees. So I'll do that. Actually probably just do all of the antler at this point. And I'm actually thinking what I'm going to do, change of mind. So I'm going to spray up the top here, because I think what I'll do is do the part that is above and below the mousse as well while I'm at it. So I'm spraying up with water the edges so that we have some nice wet and wet going on. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm using yellow ochre, and I'm just kind of going to put it into these wet areas and go right over everything to do with the antlers. If I only do the antlers in yellow, in the yellow ochre, and then I go and try to kind of do the background area, there will probably be these white spots that will get left. And they don't really want that. The airplane flying over. So I'm just kind of going to do the mousse part right down to the body so that we have a nice undertone of this color. Do that. And then, while I'm at it, so I'm now going to switch brushes to my other one. This is Perla. Yeah, let's go to Perla size 10. And I'm going to do this is burnt umber, I believe, or raw umber, I think, actually. And I'm just going to kind of wet and wet do some tree trunks, because you can kind of see them in the picture. And I think it's cool that they're not, wow, that's quite a little too much water in that. It's cool that they don't show through like really strongly, that they're just kind of faded in the background. Just using my finger to kind of pick up some of the paint that went on the actual antler. Yeah, I'll do that one a little more. And I think just add a little bit here in the sides. Maybe there. I was trying to run away from this direct sunlight. I've moved twice now from the picnic bench. So I kind of keep seeming to, I'm just drying the edge of my brush on a paper towel, and then I'm trying to pick up the paint to leave a nice defined edge here. Yeah, so it's shady over there, sunny over here. A little bit ago it was the opposite, so that's why I came here. At this point, you can see here this drip down at the bottom is picking up some paint. So I don't really want that. So I'm going to try to find a clean edge of my paper towel and just pick it up softly in a way that will keep that soft edge, because I like that. So at this point I'm going to let it dry, and that'll probably just be our first layer. The only other thing that I could do is go and add some of this kind of grassy atmosphere down here while it's wet, just so we have some of that underneath once it's dry. We'll still go and touch it later, but this will probably help to have some of that feeling already. Tiny bit of orange. And a little bit of burnt sienna. some reddish color. I think I'm just going to spray one more. I don't like that it's kind of like all this like solid line, so I'm just gonna let some of that come down in one area here and pick that up, and probably do one more, just because when I spray then it ends up draining a lot of the water out. So that should probably be good for now. Let that layer dry. Alright, so I've moved spots. I'm over beside the outdoor kitchen space because the other place just kept getting sunnier and sunnier. So what I'm doing now is I'm going in to do the darker layer. I've spritzed this up again just a second ago. I'm using a raw umber and I think this is Payne's Gray or Neutral Tint. I honestly don't remember. Could be Neutral Tint. I don't remember what I put in my travel palette. Either way, it's bringing some added darkness. And just gonna go along and do these antlers. I'm using my Perla brush again. I'll go right up to here. I'm pretty sure I'll do the entire painting with just those two brushes. I'm just getting some more yellow ochre and then adding a little bit of that darker color that's there. And I'll just go and define a few edges and then bring it into the other stuff that's already wet. There. Right. Tiny bit out here, but not a lot. Just to kind of touch that edge. And I already kind of did this edge. Don't know that I want to define too much more. It's probably good. So we'll do the same thing over on the other side. Again, probably Neutral Tint. I'm guessing it's Neutral Tint. Doesn't seem to have the gray. Payne's Gray has this grayish bluer effect, which this doesn't seem to have. I'm trying to come a little short of where the darkest dark would actually go, just because I know I'm going to go back in and add some lighter color, and then that will kind of help elongate the patches of dark. A little more dark. Sorry if trying to hold the camera with one hand, paint with the other, and I'm losing track sometimes, which is fine. I mean, I need to keep track of the painting ultimately, not the camera. So sorry if this experience is painful. If it is, if this video is not worth your time, I will not be offended. I'm trying to include people in my painting process, and I do think it's helpful for people to kind of see, I don't know, paint along, see kind of some of the things you deal with in the day-to-day painting. It's not as polished as it might be, but at least you get to see, the normal life, real, what it's like, especially painting outdoors here. Just dealing with whatever. So again, yellow ochre, and I'm gonna kind of add that in there and there. Some of this is already dried, so it won't actually bleed that nicely, which is too bad. That's as part of just painting outdoors. The wind is blowing and drying things, sometimes a little faster, sometimes a little slower. Do that, and a little bit in there. Just using my finger to pick up some of that, lighten it a little bit. Okay, same thing as before, little bit back here to define the edge of the light part of his antlers in the top, but I don't want to do too much because I like that it's just kind of there. All right, so while that is still kind of wet, especially where the antler joins the head, I'm going to go in, this is burnt sienna. I'm going to go in and define the head a little bit. Can probably mix with some yellow ochre. And I think we can go right over the eye, or at least most of it. There's a tiny little bit at the bottom of the eye that is lighter. I don't know if we care to keep it that way. The sun is finding us over here, even though I've moved. So do the lighter part of the head. This eye doesn't have any kind of white highlight on it. So we'll do that. And at this point, go into the raw umber color, because the bottom of the nose is a little more of just a plainer brown, and we will blend it in. And there are some like light patches down near the nose, so for that I'm just gonna try to leave it, like not touch parts of it, so we have a little bit of a white space left. And I'll do wet and wet. The around the eyes are a little darker too. I'll just do that wet and wet because I think it gives a more natural look. The way the fur just kind of darkens without like a really strong line. I probably will go in and add more as well later. Okay, so that is good. Now, switching to my large brush, and I'm gonna get in, do the body right away so that all of this can kind of be one contiguous shape. So because it's a wet brush, I don't want to touch the antler, which is a little bit difficult because it's right there and it's wet. And I'm starting out with fairly wet. And then I'm going to add color as we go down, trying to kind of deal with the lightest areas first. All right, so then go raw umber and this neutral tint and add some darkness going down. Because it's wet and wet, it will dry lighter. So I'm trying to keep that in mind. And this is a big brush, it holds a lot of water. I probably need to squeeze some out. Because it holds a lot of water, it just tends to, all that water equals lightness, because that water will dry. And so I'm trying to get that dark color, still using this brush. I really need to push the color, push a lot of pigment into the brush to counteract the amount of water it's holding. You go down here, and then here is where we can kind of, you see I've gotten rid of a lot of the water, and so it's almost dry brush. Don't want to get too much water. At the bottom we can kind of use this negative shape to bring out some of those wheat, what's it called? Heads of wheat effect. I guess it's just grass actually, it's not really wheat, but yeah. Like that. He really only has these accents around the sides there, like that. Now I'm just trying to kind of negative shape some wheat in there. And then I'll go through and add some darker spots while it's still wet. Like there. 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 Here at the back. Okay. Just realized that I need to not forget the ears, which they should be nice and dry up there. So I'm using yellow ochre and mixing it with some of this dark we have left on the palette. I'm just going to put those up there. Oh, sorry. And do some dark color again in here. Still a little wet around, so it will kind of blend nicely. Leave the nose. Now I want those edges to be a little softer, so I'm just using my finger to pick up the paint at the edge. Okay. I think I might need to add in a little more color. I'm using my small brush. It says I keep putting in a little too much water, I think, with that other big brush. Just trying to darken up some spots here. Yeah, it's just that large brush is great for washes, but for this kind of thing I really probably should have been using this small brush. Do a little bit here, and I'm going to blend it up with my finger. Okay, I think we just need to let it dry and come back at this again. All right, you guys, that's fairly dry. So I think we're ready to go in now for some kind of final bits. So doing a few darks down by the legs, down here, just to accentuate some of those deeper shadows. Here, want this one to bring out the kind of the curve of the belly there. I'm just wetting the brush, and I'm going to run that wet brush on this side just to give it a softer edge. Yeah. All right. Getting a few bug bites here. Same thing, I want to do a little bit on this side, especially as we get down towards the bottom. Dabbing my brush off, just wanting to keep those edges a little soft. All right, around the eyes here. Trying to go really soft. I want the shapes, the darkness of the shape there, but I don't want it to like kind of overpower where the eye is supposed to go. That's going to dry a little lighter because it's still a little wet. And I'll just add in a little bit like that. It's a little bit of a kind of a line in the middle here. And there is a darker spot that we have kind of lost in here. It's probably slightly darker than the reference photo. But that's okay. And now I'm just kind of using up the little bit of color we have left. I'm going to go in and add some of these slightly darker areas to the ears and things. Still want it to be kind of softer edges. I don't want it to be super hard. So I'm just using my finger every so often to dab, putting in a little color, dab, putting in a little color, dab. In here, I think we could use a little bit and maybe up here, actually probably a flash of color would be nice. So I'm putting a little bit of burnt sienna, and then I'm just going to, using a wet brush, dab it with water, try to get rid of those strong edges. That way we just see that color there. All right, getting close. I'm going to let that dry before we go in and do the eyes one last time. The antlers I feel are fairly good. Most of the stuff is fairly good. So what I want to do now is add in a little bit down here, and then I'm going to add in a little bit up there. So down below there are some darker patches. I think what we have is probably just about good. So I'm going to add in some water, especially on the bottom. So I want this, none of this, to be a hard edge if we add any more paint in there. And I'm going to go in, I'll start with yellow ochre. I'm just going to add in like a few blades, kind of a little more meaningfully. The wet parts, this is burnt sienna. Wet parts will just kind of bleed. I don't mind, like that's quite defined. I don't mind having some like that, as long as there's a little bit of bleeding as well. And maybe over here. I do want some change of color though. So I'll put some yellow ochre. And over here. That's nice. Okay. Fairly happy with that. I think a little bit of dark would be nice. You can see in the picture there's some kind of like darker spots in there. So I do think like a little bit just to add some contrast is probably good. So at this point, I think we're going to do some splattering. So for that, we've basically just been working out of this one well for now, up to this point. So for the splattering, actually wrong yellow, I want to put some yellow. In the reference picture we can see some kind of yellow leaves. It's kind of those, I think it's birch. So I'm going to put a little bit of that. This is like I think it's an azo yellow, and I'm mixing it a little bit with yellow ochre. And up here, I'm just going to splatter some. I almost wish that I had maybe sprayed it up there. So we'll try that now. Sorry, lost track of the camera. Yeah, much better. So spray this again. And we're going to do a little bit down below too. Wow, too much. That's okay. And go a little bit more up top. And a little on the sides. It's nice when some of them are like hard, like that, hard edges, and some are soft. Okay, and I'm just going to do the same thing, a little bit of dark color. I don't want to overdo it, just so there's some contrast in the colors we're seeing. Probably a little darker. All right, so now if we still have time, I'm going to pick up a few of these edges that kind of got away from us on the sides, or I'll just spray some of them. Like just out. I didn't really want color right out to the edges in some of these areas. So right out here, here. Yeah, the rest I kind of like. So once this is dry, I'm going to leave these a little longer before we put in the actual eyes as the darkest. But otherwise, I would say we're very close to being done. Okay, so we're doing the final step now, the eyes. For that, I'm just using neutral tint. And my brush is quite wet. This is my little paper towel. I'm going to try to get it quite dark. Pretty much straight pigment. And camera's not super clear. Put that in there. And on the other side. Yeah, basically like that. Could add in a little more. There are some slightly darker, like, oopsies. Ended up touching the eye. Slightly darker edges right here. I could go in and add again, and then a little bit more to here and to there. Yeah. Just going to go and add a little more on some of these areas. I think basically we are done. Actually, I'm just realizing that this nose needs a little more darkness right in here. And I'll just touch up the edges there. And use the paper towel instead. Yeah. And I'm going to do, this is very kind of touchy, probably overdoing it, but I want a little more of the brushstroke visible. All right, so that's probably good. Just going to go ahead and with the same dark color, I'm just going to sign it, and we will be done. There we go. There we go, you guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for your patience on this very rustic kind of go with the flow painting experience. Yeah, I have other videos, you can check them out, and I'm hoping to be a little more consistent. My goal is once a month, so yeah, that's the plan for this year. So stay tuned to see some other videos, and leave a comment if you feel like it. Thanks.